So the Twitch streamer Shroud had some opinions about Game of the Year this year, and it really bothered me, so I just wanted to give my 2 cents about it because it's been on my mind for the past week or so. So here are my 2 cents. Here's the first clip.
Dude, we got to make sure that this game wins Game of the Year, by the way. Do not let that Expedition game win Game of the Year. Do not let it. Absolutely do not. We all have to band together to make this game win. Us multiplayer gamers are the minority, okay? We are the minority being multiplayer gamers, but I believe we can win. I believe. You just need to tell everybody. I've never voted for anything ever, but I think I'm going to vote this year for this game. You didn't vote for Elden Ring? No, I've never voted ever. I mean, not like votes actually matter, dude. All fucking awards are rigged anyway. Who cares? When have you ever seen an award that's actually legit?
So I'm not going to take away that he thinks that Arc Raiders is his game of the year. If that's his opinion, then that is his opinion. He's a guy that predominantly plays competitive online shooters, and if he thinks that this is his game of the year, I can't take that away from him because that's simply his own opinion. My own opinion is that I think Death Stranding 2 is game of the year, but that is just my own opinion, and that's my personal game of the year. And even then, I can still acknowledge that there are other games this year that have really good competition in comparison to Death Stranding 2, and Death Stranding 2 might not win, and I think that's okay because I still love Death Stranding 2. Nothing can take away from that. But for him to also make the argument that the reason why that Arc Raiders should win Game of the Year is because he believes that multiplayer gamers are a minority seems very odd to me, considering the fact that some of the most popular games on the Steam charts are multiplayer games. Like, the top 5 most popular games on the Steam charts right now are all multiplayer games. One of them being Arc Raiders. So that's kind of odd. And then I got curious because one of the biggest competitive events out there is Worlds. So League of Legends, it's a competitive event. It happens every year, I believe. And last year, in 2024, it had almost 7 million people watching concurrently, excluding China. A lot of people are definitely interested in watching multiplayer games. Multiplayer games are some of the most popular games that are viewed on Twitch and on YouTube. So it's very strange of him to say that multiplayer gamers are a minority. The clip wraps up with him saying that the awards are rigged and that when was the last time a game legit won an award that it deserved. I guess that's what he's insinuating, mainly in regarding to Game of the Year. That one bothered me the most because that means he looks back the past like 10 or 11 years of games that have won Game of the Year, like The Witcher 3, like Breath of the Wild, or God of War, or Sekiro, or It Takes Two, or Elden Ring, or Baldur's Gate, or Astrobot. And he's like, yeah, those games didn't deserve the win. They should have gone to a multiplayer game of that year. And it really bothered me. It really bothered me that he almost insinuates that the games that won Game of the Year those past few years didn't deserve it, and the games that got nominated, they didn't deserve to be nominated. It should have been a multiplayer game. Even though last year he thought that Black Myth Wukong should have won. And honestly, I think that's the main reason for this that even stems from it, is because he truly believes that the Game Awards are rigged, and that I'll say that they're biased. But the thing that about a game winning Game of the Year is, of course, it's biased because it's based off of people's opinion about what they think is the best game of that year, like collectively so. And whatever game had the most amount of people saying that that game is the best game of that year, then yeah, of course that game is going to end up winning. Like, that's just how it works statistically. Moving on though, we then have this clip of him responding to a viewer, and I thought this one was really strange.
Hey, bro, Expedition 33's Game of the Year. Actually play the fucking game before berating it. Fuck ass bitch, suck my balls.
Holy shit, that guy's mad.
Oh my God.
No,
I didn't even berate it. I didn't even berate it. I just think single player games always win Game of the Year, and it's bullshit. Fucking, like, what, couple million people play that game? Cool, bro. Where's the tens of millions? Where's the Marvel Rivals? 50+ million people. Fucking suck my...
So I will agree with Shroud. He didn't berate Expedition 33 or anything, but for him to also then mention how Marvel Rivals had like 50 million players, which I looked it up, I think it's only in regarding to players registered, and it wasn't even 50 million, it was 40 million, but that's not really the point. It's funny how he mentions this when in the last clip that I showed you, he just mentioned how multiplayer players are a minority in the gaming community and that they have to work together in order to be able to get Arc Raiders to win Game of the Year. So that's really funny. But to also then base your opinion on why a game should win Game of the Year because it's a popular game, that's really bizarre to me as well. Like, if that's the case, then shouldn't Call of Duty like every year win Game of the Year because they sell millions of copies and make billions of dollars every single year? Like, what logic is that? That doesn't make any sense at all. Also, his comment about how single player games always win Game of the Year and it's BS. How about those games are just simply better, right? And that's the reason why they get nominated. That's why they win. It's because those games are just simply better. And I honestly agree, because for the most part, when it comes to multiplayer games, it really depends on how post-launch support is handled moving forward. Because in 2016, ironically enough, that was a year that a multiplayer game had actually won. It was the hero shooter Overwatch. But that aged really, really badly because number one, you can't even play Overwatch 1 anymore. And number two, even then, at that point, the game just kept continuing to get worse and worse in quality. And now you have Overwatch 2. And to be fair, I think Overwatch 2 currently is at the best it's ever been. But for a long time, Overwatch 2 was not doing very well and people were not happy with the quality of that game. Especially when Overwatch 2 had came out and they promised single player content and they didn't deliver on that. And then not only that, but the thing about multiplayer games that hampers it especially is, like I had mentioned about how you can't play Overwatch 1 anymore. Eventually, multiplayer games are gonna end up being shut down. You can't play those games anymore. Like, you can't get access to the lobbies or the servers. They just get shut down for whatever reason. So if a multiplayer game ends up winning, it's like, are we gonna be able to play that game forever? And I don't think we're gonna be able to play every single multiplayer game forever. So it's like, when you have a game that's single player, you at least know you're gonna be able to go back to that game and be able to play it however long do you want, forever. And it'll always stand the test of time as being a game that is genre defining. And that's usually why a game ends up winning Game of the Year, is because it was genre defining and it pushed gaming forward in some way.
I feel like Game of the Year needs to be two different categories.
Yeah.
I feel like multiplayer and single player competing doesn't make sense because it's so easy for a single player game to win, you know? I think they should just make two. Absolutely it is.
I feel like,
dude, the last time a multiplayer game won was 2016.
What was it?
Well, dude,
Overwatch.
okay, wait. What do you mean by multiplayer? Do you mean PvP? Because that's not true. If you're talking strictly PvP, then yes, you're right.
I mean, isn't it just multiplayer only?
Well, no, because it's It Takes Two, didn't it? It Takes Two.
Okay, bro, that's not multiplayer.
This next clip really just shows that Shroud doesn't even really know what he's arguing for. He's talking about how there should be an award for multiplayer games, an award for single player games. And newsflash, if you just do a little Google search, you will find that they actually have done that before in the past. I don't know how he just like doesn't know this. So 2016, Overwatch. 2017, PUBG. 2018, Fortnite. 2019, Apex Legends. 2020, it was Among Us. That is a multiplayer game because that requires you to be able to have other players in the lobby in order to be able to play. And what were some other multiplayer games that were nominated for that year? Valorant, Fall Guys, Call of Duty Warzone, and Animal Crossing New Horizons. 2021, It Takes Two. That is a multiplayer game. Like, that is a part of the genre of multiplayer. Just because you don't have a gun and you point at other people to shoot them doesn't mean that it's not a multiplayer game, because it's a couch co-op multiplayer game. There's a subgenre for multiplayer games other than just online competitive shooters, and for some reason Shroud just doesn't know that. By the way, is ironic because another game that could potentially win Game of the Year this year, or at least be nominated, is Split Fiction. That was incredibly popular this year, and it came from the same studio that made It Takes Two. So the biggest ironic thing that could potentially happen this year is that Split Fiction gets nominated and it wins. That would be the most ironic thing to happen. But so only in Shroud's mind, for some reason, something that is considered a multiplayer game has to be something like Valorant or CSGO or PUBG or Arc Raiders or Tarkov. Basically any online competitive-esque shooter. If it's anything co-op, like a Destiny or something like that, or Destiny 2 or Space Marine, or even like a Borderlands, right? A Borderlands, you can play that multiplayer. Those don't count for some reason, which is just funny. It was a really funny clip. I didn't find that on my own. I found that from another channel called Klutzy King 552. So shout out to him for finding the clip. I'm going to link his video down in the description if you want to go check it out. It's pretty good. So moving away from Shroud for a minute, these next two people that I wanted to mention was Myth and XQC. So Myth left his opinion about what he thinks about Arc Raiders. And again, he's entitled to his own opinion, but his opinion about why he thinks that this game should win Game of the Year, I just don't think is enough. So he mentions how Arc Raiders is the first PvP game in the history of PvP games to properly incorporate PvE into the genre without it feeling clunky, slow, and dumb. And I just don't think that's enough of a reason for this to be even nominated, because outside of that, like, what does this game even really do? This isn't the first extraction shooter to feature PvE. This isn't the first game to be an extraction shooter. If anything, from what I can tell, this is basically just a beginner-friendly, more approachable version of Tarkov, pretty much, because they're both extraction shooters. Because one of the things about Tarkov that a lot of people find very intimidating about the game is just how punishing it is, whereas Arc Raiders isn't as punishing and it's much more approachable, which is fine. I think that's good, because this could be potentially someone's beginner-friendly way of approaching into extraction shooters. And whatever knowledge and experience they take from this game, they can take that into other extraction shooters, and that's great. This alone just isn't enough for me to even want to consider it. There has to be more than that. Does it innovate in some way in comparison to other multiplayer games? Does it innovate in the extraction shooter genre in some way besides having PvE that doesn't feel clunky and slow and dumb? And then you have XQC, who is trying not to be a glazer, but then he glazes the game by saying that it's a technical achievement on a multitude of levels, even though one of the main things that is plaguing the game right now is a desync issue. So obviously it's not a technical achievement on a multitude of levels, because people are experiencing a lot of desync and latency issues. And then he lists off the reasons as to why Expedition 33 is going to win Game of the Year, and he's like, oh, it can only go so far. Like all these reasons as to why people love Clair Obscur so much, like the amazing story, the amazing characters, the fantastic soundtrack, and the innovation in turn-based combat. All these reasons that make this game so absolutely phenomenal, that makes it viable for it to be nominated and win Game of the Year. Yeah, this can only take you so far. It can only take a product so far in comparison to a product like Arc. Arc Raiders is just a significantly better game, and nothing else can compare to it. Just a really silly comment that I found from XQC, and just a really bad take from him. Finally, I just wanted to mention this last tweet, because this was from an account that is, I believe, specifically in regarding to Arc Raider news and information. And this one really, really, really bothered me, because this is an account that is specifically supposed to be posting about news and information in regarding to Arc Raiders. Not to say an account like that is bad. I follow plenty of accounts that are like that. But my problem is that they decided to go ahead and jump into the conversation, and they have this, like, I guess meme, but they say that multiplayer games are better than single player games, especially Arc Raiders. Announced the game as Game of the Year already, and they have the multiplayer, and then they have Arc Raiders is better than Expedition 33 single player. And this bothered me, because this is completely counterintuitive to what Shroud wanted to happen, where he wanted people to join together to get this game to win Game of the Year. And this is doing the exact opposite. All this does is just make people upset, and just... And to be fair, if you like multiplayer games more than single player, that is fine. For a long time, I only played multiplayer games. I was mainly playing games like Call of Duty, but then I realized that I don't need to only play Call of Duty. I can play other games that I also find interesting. And that's how I became a From Software fan, and I started getting into the Dark Souls games, and Elden Ring, and Sekiro, and a whole bunch of other games that are also in that subgenre of Soulsborne, and so many other games that I think are genuinely some of the best games that I've ever played in my entire life. That's how I found my personal Game of the Year this year with Death Stranding 2. So to have this and be so combative, to be so antagonistic towards people that find single player games more interesting, is just so bothering to me, because single player games are the foundation for gaming in general. If it wasn't for single player games laying the foundation for what gaming is, we wouldn't have multiplayer games be the way that they are. And I agree, maybe there should be more on a spotlight for multiplayer games that are genuinely an achievement and push the multiplayer genre forward, because last year when Helldivers 2 came out, it did that. A lot of people were playing that game, but then they made a lot of mistakes and people were starting to change their minds. The same thing could easily happen to Arc Raiders. Like this week, this month, people are really enjoying Arc Raiders, but then an update can come out and they'll release more content, and the content isn't enough for some reason, and people will get mad and then they'll turn on the game, and then they won't want to see this win game of the year. It could easily happen. This happens all the time because the scope of multiplayer games is always constantly changing. Every single month, there's always a new multiplayer game that comes out, and it takes the world by storm, or it takes over Twitch and everyone's playing it, and blah blah blah. This happens all the time. Anyways, I just wanted to give my 2 cents about this discussion really quick because it had been bothering me for about a week. So now that I have them out on video, hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Again, if Shroud believes that this is the game of the year, if this is his game of the year, I'm not going to take that away from him because that's not what I care about. What I care about is how he went about trying to advocate for this game to even be nominated. The way that he goes about trying to say that the Game Awards are rigged and that last year it should have been Black Myth Wukong that won and that Astrobot didn't deserve it. Even though Astrobot is one of the best platformers that has come out in recent years and celebrates not just the history of PlayStation video games, but just video games in general. That's what the game did. That's what it was trying to accomplish. And it was trying to just be a fun game, and that's what it was. Not to say that Black Myth Wukong wasn't. Astrobot just meant so much more, especially when it came from such a smaller development team that had probably like a third of the money in the budget that something like Black Myth Wukong had. So anyway, I'm rambling on at this point. If you liked the video, be sure to like. If you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.